Doing some off for somebody's wake up is a gas.
That's the sound of a hard knockdown. In fighting games, knockdowns are the essence of the game. Get a hit, then use that hit to springboard your offense, and try to turn that hit into more. But let's clarify things so that everyone is on the same page. A round in a fighting game can be broken down into 3 stages: advantage, neutral, and disadvantage. The game starts in neutral, where both players are trying to get a hit or get themselves in a plus frame situation. I'll explain later, don't worry. Once a player gets a hit, they are now in advantage, while the player who got hit is in disadvantage. For the player in advantage, now it's time for offense. And for the player in disadvantage, they've gotta leverage their defense. So what is advantage in this context? Fighting games are all about numbers, or frames. Moves have startup frames, or how long it takes until your move comes out. And the fastest move in Street Fighter 6 is 4 frames. After startup is their on-block frame data. When a move is blocked, who gets to move first? Ryu's solar plexus strike, or forward heavy punch, is +3 on block. That means if it gets blocked, he can act 3 frames sooner than his opponent. He has 3 frames of frame advantage. But if Ryu goes for his whirlwind kick, or forward heavy kick, and that gets blocked, Ryu is now -4. His opponent now has 4 frames of advantage. And if any of your attacks land almost 100%, you have frame advantage. Neutral is all about getting frame advantage, and offense is how you leverage your frame advantage. So why is frame advantage so important? If you're +1 and you choose to do your fastest 4 frame attack, they kinda have to sit there and block it. Because if they choose to do any move, with an important exception, they'll get counter hit and eat a combo. With the basics out of the way, we can get started on offense. Let's say you find yourself in advantage. Whether it be a plus on block button, or you get a hit and a knockdown. You have your frame advantage, but they just block. And once they block enough, you'll be out of range. So let's make it a bit harder for our opponent. Ken is blocking here, but he still took damage because he got thrown, the other half of standard offense. Blocking stops what we call strikes, which is basically all attacks, but blocking doesn't stop throws. You stop throws by using your own throw. If you input throw within a certain window, you tech their throw and push them back. No more danger. Normal throws are universally 5 frames of startup. So if you have at least 2 frames of advantage, you threaten both the strike and the throw, which is why we call it strike-throw mix, the backbone of offense. Do you hit them, or do you throw them? Do they block, or do they tech? But even when your opponent is on offense, and you're on defense, you still have options. If you tech at a specific time frame, you can actually manage to beat both the strike and the throw. Teching throws has a long window, so much so that if you wait just a little bit, the opponent's strike will be blocked and their throw will be teched. This is called a delay tech, a way to beat both strikes and throws. But as powerful as delay tech is, it has a crucial weakness we'll come back to in just a little bit. And whenever I bring up teching, just assume it's delay teching. There isn't a good reason to not also account for the strike if you're willing to tech. Instead of blocking, teching, or delay teching, you could spend 2 bars of drive and do an invincible reversal. OD reversals, which I'll just call DPs, don't care that your opponent has frame advantage because these moves have invincibility on their startup frames. So when they go to strike or throw you, you blow past all of that and hit them instead. DP is a very important option, but sadly not every character has access to it. Kimberly, Dalzim, Edmund Honda, Manon, Marissa, JP, Zangief, Lily, Aki, and M. Bison all don't have DPs. So do they have to just sit there and take it? They don't. After a knockdown, or while blocking, you can hold down heavy punch, heavy kick, and forward to do a drive reversal. You still need to spend 2 bars of drive, and you don't get any of the damage that a DP would give you. Drive reversal only does gray recoverable life. But you are still able to blow through their offense and get them off, which is the primary objective. DPs and drive reversals are good and all, but they both cost drive gauge. This will be important later. So what if you're in burnout? Are you stuck? Still no. If you have super bar, then you can spend some of that to get a high damaging invincible super. Again, some characters don't have invincibility on some of their supers, but most do. But if you have no drive gauge and no super bar, you don't have this option. Sorry. Back to offense. What can you, as the player with advantage, do? Do you just get hit? DPs and supers on block are minus. Very, very minus. So if you block one of them, you can absolutely obliterate their life bar. Just block, right? Even though you're an advantage, you feel like they're going to DP or super, so you give up some of your pressure for a potential huge payout. So just block? Not exactly. Because if they choose to tech and you're blocking, you get thrown. Not great for someone in advantage. So how about an offensive option that not only baits DPs, but also beats throws and delay tech? This is the shimmy. Instead of blocking, you walk back. Street Fighter is a hold back to block game. So while you walk back, you're also actively blocking the DP. And because you're walking out of throw range, their throw tech whiffs, and now you can punish it. Is someone constantly delay teching? Shimmy them, and make them regret picking that option. But shimmying isn't without weakness. Because you aren't taking advantage of your advantage frames, it inherently gives up pressure. Walking back also means you aren't in their face anymore. So if you're wrong, no more advantage. And on defense, you can call out a shimmy with a low attack. Walking back blocks strikes, but not if they hit low. So that's the offensive playbook. Strike throw and shimmy. But to fully understand offense, we have to take a look at the options a player on defense can employ. We've already talked about blocking, teching, and reversals. But there is a bit more you can do. Let's say you're sure that they're gonna strike you. If you have any drive gauge remaining, you can attempt to perfect parry. And if it works, you get to hit them, the damage will be less than normal due to the scaling, but you do get drive gauge damage and you get to build your own drive gauge back. And if you're sure of a throw, you can backdash. Make the throw miss and potentially relieve some pressure. A jump also avoids it and does something similar. And if you choose these options while cornered, you can steal the corner on a correct read. Those are the primary options on offense and defense. There are more niche ones such as delay button or delay DP or DP on advantage, but I don't think that going into them would be necessary. So, is this all offense is? Both players just guessing? Yes, but it's a bit more nuanced than that. To help explain this, let's talk about poker, specifically Texas Hold'em. Poker, literally gambling, can also be boiled down to just guessing over and over again. And yet the same few players make it to the final table over and over again. And it's not because they're the luckiest people in the world. Yes, these players are guessing, but they're not doing it blindly. A game of poker lasts for a long time, and over all those hands, you aren't playing the cards, you're playing the player. You start noticing habits, tells, and patterns. The decisions they're making aren't blind. It's based off of information that they extracted from their opponents. And with 5-card hand, that'd be the end of it. Who can play the opponent better? But I'm talking about Texas Hold'em here. And in Hold'em, there are 5 community cards for everyone to see. Public information that can and will be used to influence decision making. This information, combined with the increased number of betting rounds, has given Hold'em a reputation as the variant with the higher skill ceiling. The public information gives another layer for the players to extrapolate from and more chances for the better player to win. You could just call this guessing, but I'd argue that's an oversimplification. Back to Street Fighter. Again, you could say that offense is just guessing, but I would say it's deeper than that. Much like in poker, you're in essence playing your opponent, and as much as they try to hide it, people have tells, people are predictable, and people have habits you can exploit. The whole point of conditioning is to try to get your opponent to do what you want them to do. If you throw them 6 times in a row, they might start teching. It may be hard to notice in just a round or two, but over the course of a set, players figure each other out, or think they figure each other out, and their guesses start to make more and more sense. Players aren't just guessing on offense, they're trying to read what their opponent wants to do. On offense, you're trying to throw out any of the options that your opponent isn't currently checking at that moment. And on defense, you're trying to correctly check the option that the offense is choosing. It's much easier to be on offense than to be on defense. Earlier, I brought up the distinction between Texas Hold'em and 5-card hand poker. The public information being a key aspect. The thing with Street Fighter is, much like how different hands have different strengths, not every offensive option is made equal. And the same is true of defensive options. A successful throw will never be as punishing as a successful shimmy, and a successful tech won't give you as much reward as a backdash. Perfect parry might be better than blocking if it works, but if it gets thrown, it's much worse. This is the public information that both players have access to, the risk-reward of each option. DPs and supers may get you out of trouble, but if they don't work out, you're taking a lot more damage than they would've. An option could do less damage than others, but put you in a more advantageous position. Strikes are risky because of the threat of the perfect parry, and most characters get enough advantage off their throw in the corner in order to threaten another one. There are many reasons to choose certain offensive options outside of just reading your opponent. But these situations aren't easy, and even the best of pros can misread them.
Travis Scott!
Singapore Premier 2024, DCQ vs Kakeru. Game 2, round 1, and Coach Ding has Kakeru in burnout. He throws him, then drive rushes to keep his advantage. Here on defense, Kakeru chooses to tech a throw, which Coach Ding shimmies and takes the round. Now I'm not faulting Kakeru for guessing wrong. It happens. It happens to the best players in the game. But teching here doesn't make a lot of sense. Let's analyze the situation. Coach Ding has a bar and a half of drive gauge left, meaning that not only does a successful shimmy win him the round, but he can throw Kakeru twice more and still keep advantage. So here are his options. He can block, potentially getting thrown another 2 times. He can check Coach Ding's shimmy and potentially win the round, or he could level 1 super and win the round. But Kakeru teched, and I don't think he should have. Teching here loses to shimmy just like level 1 does, but if it's successful, Kakeru is still in burnout, and Bison still has ways of pressuring. Level 1 here beats everything that teching would beat, but it also wins the round on the spot. Sure, the level 1 costs a super bar, but I would argue a round here is definitely worth it. This is kind of a moot point because what Coach Ding did would have beaten both, but my point is, these situations are really complex, and understanding them does take skill. Offense isn't just about reading your opponent. Though it is a very important part of it, it's also about managing risk-reward. Some options will always be more optimal in certain scenarios, and it's up to both players to understand this and even use it to their advantage. Players aren't being bad when they DP in a position where it would lose them the game if blocked, or parrying when they would be put into burnout when thrown. Both players know the potential result of the option, and they're leveraging the fact that their opponents know it's a risky option and wouldn't think they would do it. And sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. Let's give an example. Still at Singapore Premier 2024, Nephew vs Bravery. It's game 2, final round. Bravery has a life lead, but Nephew gets a knockdown. If Bravery wakes up with level 3 here, he can absolutely chunk Nephew and put him in a really bad situation. But if this super gets blocked, because of Bravery's low drive gauge, he straight up loses the game. Sounds like a risk that Bravery wouldn't be willing to take, right? But what I didn't show was how active Bravery was on defense in this set, with multiple DPs and perfect parry attempts. This let Nephew know that Bravery was willing to take these kinds of risks, maybe even comfortable with them. So he blocked it, and won the set because Bravery got burnt out without any super bar. Even though the option seemed unlikely, Nephew still blocked the super because it seemed like something Bravery would do, and he won the set off of it. That is the essence of offense. A combination of managing the inherent risk in each of your options, along with managing your opponent and what options they want to do. I would say that it's more than just a guess. So what's the key to a good offense? I think this part may be a bit controversial, but I'm gonna say making sure your opponent has no idea what you're gonna do on offense, or to put it in simpler terms, being random. If your opponent can't read you on offense, suddenly you become incredibly scary, because it does turn into straight up guessing. And like I said earlier, the player on offense is favored in that position. But this isn't as easy as you would think. Humans aren't great at being random, and you still have to take risk reward into consideration a little bit. So if you are able to make your offense seemingly random, you are incredibly scary. Ivan Domination, IDOM, has success not only because of his unpredictable and terrifying offense, but also because of his unpredictable defense. So much success that Ivan is one of the few players to win Capcom Cup, and with his recent performance at Hartford, I don't think anyone is raring to take Ivan on. So when Low Tier God says that doing something off of someone's wake up is a guess, he's half right. It is a guess, but it's an educated guess. One based on the knowledge of the game state, and the knowledge of your opponent, maybe even your opponent's knowledge of you. Guessing has a negative connotation. It's perceived as easy or unskillful. But good, consistent offense is anything but.
4! Don't do it so hard! 5! No more, do it! Oh! Shahan said, the wake up OD! Dragon Punch and Kusanagi as the crowd rushes the stage! France is defended!
Howdy. I don't usually talk at this part, so hi. I want to let y'all know that I did make a non-fighting game video, but that doesn't mean these fighting game ones will stop coming. Point is, fighting game uploads are still coming, don't worry, and maybe check out my other stuff too. Also, one guy said to remind y'all to subscribe, so subscribe.